There you go.
Gotcha. Okay, it's 2:05 p.m. on the 12th day of October, 2017, and I'm sitting here with Bob Klein in his basement, and this is Scott Brook, and we are going to give a little bit of recollections of the West Liberty Community Center and Daycare Center project that started basically back at about, would you say about 1992 was the initial?
1992 was the first public input of the top 3 issues that faced West Liberty.
Yep.
And one of them was the need for a public community center. The photo we have here is our good friend John Wright and his wife
Eloise?
Eloise Wright, that stepped forward before we had any architect designs, anything on the ground,
Right.
with a $400,000 pledge, which was just amazing.
I think Eloise, her maiden name was Mountain, wasn't that right?
Mountain, yes.
And they had a family farm outside of West Liberty, and
North
that's
of town.
kind of what brought them back to
Yep.
this community.
Yep, sure is. And quite a gentleman he was. He was the architect for Ralston Prina, and retired here, so
Wonderful people.
we salute him. Next photo is, I can name most of them, organizers and committee members of our first public fund announcement. We've got Bob Klein on the right, Bob Fullwider, Ralph Farmer, Fillmore Melick, U.S. Representative Jim Leach, Martin Rich, and Tom Brook. All very active committee members and spearheaded the fund drive. At that time, Scott, you remember we announced we had $725,000 pledged towards our goal of $1,300,000.
Yeah, that was phenomenal. That was phenomenal. You know, the fortunate part of it is it's all about timing. And I think the timing was perfect to take on a project like this. The economy was doing well, Wall Street was doing well, and people were feeling good about things. And I think the spirits were very positive to take a project like this on. It looks like this was done down at the fairgrounds at the
Yes, it
community
was.
center. And that was basically about the only community center we had in town at the time.
Activity building, yes.
Yep.
I'm going to trade photos here with you. And one of the speakers at that time was Martin Rich. You might want to focus the camera a little bit,
Yeah.
and we can in and out if you need to.
Okay.
Martin Rich and his family members, of course, were the heir apparent to the Lewis Rich Foods, West Liberty Foods turkey production, and their family stepped forward with $225,000 gift towards a child care center, which wasn't in the original plans.
Oh, okay.
Didn't figure we could afford both.
Okay.
But with that gift, that took the burden of fundraising, bingo, one big.
Yep.
And of course, the center is named after their parents,
Right.
Lewis Rich, Lewis and Ida Rich
Lewis and
Child
Ida.
Care Center.
Right.
There's a photo of U.S. Representative Jim Leach, who is our representative in Washington, D.C. And I remember one of the remarks he made, America is the only country that would do a project like this without government support and the taxpayer base, and just volunteers step forward, and that's exactly what happened.
Yep.
There wasn't any taxpayer-based money used at all. That's our board at the time of the signing with the First Church United to buy the property. They had about 3.5 acres. That was sort of a donation because we paid them cash, and then they turned around and made a nice, I think it was around a $20,000 donation for some highway property that was really valuable property.
And the property was originally the Treadwell Robertson property that the First Church eventually purchased from the Robertson family to build the church, and then this was always just a farm field, I believe, wasn't it?
Cornfield, sure
Just the
was.
cornfield. Yep. And
I can give you those names too, Scott. Everybody on the board was representing an entity in West Liberty. Mike Blink for the city, Chad James, I'm sure First Church United, Fillmore Melick in the front row. The back row on the left is Barbara Owens, Senior Citizens, Bob Klein, Jody Kelly, and Scott Brook were all volunteer board members at the time
yep.
to get the thing started. It worked, Scott. Congratulations.
Doesn't seem like it could be that long ago.
Just a quick shot of some of the volunteers that helped. There was several mailings that went out, and we had
Yes.
volunteers that would come in and by the hour, address envelopes,
Yeah.
and that was a great thing. Pulled the community together. Tremendous
Absolutely.
support.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there was so many people beside the board members that game of time and talent and treasure to make this come together.
Shall we start in on the construction phase?
Yeah, you bet. The one thing where the community center and daycare center is being built, it was in a farm field, but that farm field was always wet, which much of West Liberty has that quality to it. There's a lot of high water table and boggy in some areas, and so we had to raise the elevation up. And Bob Klein out there at their family farm had kind of a sand hill, and he donated. What was the tonnage of that?
I think it's 3,000 tons.
It might have
Sand.
very well been. It was a lot, and there was some tiling initially done. Everett Crease was and his boys were the dirt men on the job, and they tiled, and then they brought in all this sand from Bob Klein's farm and started laying it out and compacting it, and they did a fantastic job. We really have not had any settling whatsoever that impacted the parking lot or the buildings at all.
I think that's a shot of the field as they were bringing in the sand, and also did some tiling to eliminate the surface water. Like you mentioned, that's a drainage, natural drain slope. And the sand was a good conductor to get rid of the water.
Yeah.
And Everett Crease, as you mentioned, I remember calling you, Scott, on the first day as he put the dozers to work. Said he's moving dirt.
Absolutely.
Scott said, I'll be right up. That was a monumental moment. And they did an excellent job. We've had no problems with wall crackage.
No, parking lot is as solid as the day it was built.
That was in, looks like late in the spring.
Probably.
We started probably in 96, I would guess,
Yeah.
when we first started moving some dirt. And there they're laying out some survey marks, if we're getting that in the right spot for the photo.
Yeah.
This shows a little better too, I think, the tile underneath the floor, and that floor has not moved an inch. I believe they started with the child care center on the construction first. The smaller of the two buildings, about 4,000 square feet.
Correct.
Sound about right?
Yeah, that is correct.
And
Fry Builders was awarded the contract for the general contractor, and there was, I don't remember the name of the architectural firm, but they were out of Iowa City, and the name slips my mind right now.
I remember you and I walking into the main building area once. It was kind of coming in construction. It looked small.
Yeah, they always
God,
do.
we thought we made a horrible mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, once you start putting the roof on, though, and then it starts bringing it into perspective.
yes.
That,
A lot of this was done during the winter months,
yeah.
which would have been the winter of 96 and 97.
Yeah, and I wish I could remember what those winters were like temperature-wise.
It looks cold.
Yeah, I'm sure.
In fact, too cold for cement. And kind of bleak sunny. You couldn't imagine how it was going to be when it wound up. These pictures just a little bit out of order, Scott.
It's all
That's
right.
showing pouring the foundation and the footings.
I remember when that was done. The architect came down, it was in the evening, and he had his flashlight and was inspecting all the footings to make sure that they were where they needed to be and we're going to meet code. And
If I remember right, you and I met with the contractors every Thursday.
that's exactly right.
Every Thursday, rain or shine, to get an update, what had happened and what was going to happen. They used steel beams, of course, for the primary construction.
Yeah. It was a wide footprint, and so they had to.
With no posts or pillars on the interior.
Correct.
That's
Correct.
amazing.
Yep.
Here's a shot of the stage being built, which was a minor, small stage, but that was the purpose of it.
It's had a lot of use over the years.
Oh boy, it sure has. I think we had monthly board meetings, but even we met more than that as a board as it started progressing.
I think the gentleman in that picture was the representative from
If
the architectural firm, if I remember right.
either that or we had a feasibility study, and the gentleman from Davenport came up quite often.
Oh, okay.
Tall, slender guy.
Well, that might be the fella then.
Yeah.
I didn't remember the architect having a beard and a mustache.
Yeah.
So that's probably the fellow from there. From that.
Your dad had mentioned more than once that in his lifetime, this was the largest nonprofit, publicly supported project in his lifetime. A building of a community center and a child care center.
Well, you don't see very many of them happening in different communities.
And
That's
you're
for
right,
sure.
it'd be difficult to do now because the economy's different.
The economy is absolutely
Generation is different.
Yep.
On the interior wall, we have a plaque of all the givers privately. There's 245 individuals,
Yeah.
and anywhere from $10 to 400,000, and everything in between.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But the philanthropic spirit is contagious in the right communities. And that's the part that's it's hard to find anymore.
And the cause, yes, we're touching 3 or 4 bases here. It's a community center for the public, child care center for the younger people,
Yeah,
and also a nice facility for the senior citizens,
correct.
which they have been bouncing around from place to place.
Yep.
And guys, they had their own meeting room. Here's a shot of the heating in place by now. One exception being contractors, I think. All American Concrete, which is Bill
Simon?
Simon, did the parking, and
Yep.
I assume the driveways. Did an
Yep.
excellent job.
Yeah, he did a great job. You know, all in all, the building went fairly smooth, really, with very little problems, or I don't really even recall any change orders. So I think it pretty much came through as it was originally intended and drawn and planned. Do you recall any change orders?
The only thing that comes to my mind is the, what do you call that, the portico?
Oh, the portico?
Yes, was lower.
We raised that so
They
we
realized that UPS and some ambulances couldn't clear
couldn't get
it.
it. Yep, exactly.
Well, in
Forgot about
retrospect,
that.
We could have just said, well, just stop, don't go under it.
Yeah, but people don't do that, unfortunately.
No, they sure don't.
Yeah, I'd forgotten all about that.
Construction is nearing completion. It'll be in the summer of '99 by now,
Yeah.
because had our opening ceremonies October of '99.
Okay. Yeah, that's correct.
There were 2 things that slowed progress up a little bit.
Yeah.
You recall what that was?
I do. Probably the first one was between the main room and the end room where we have more of a private room. There was a large sliding door that crossed, and it was such a heavy door that it was causing the roof truss to, or the beams to sag a little bit, and that door was dragging. And so we had to have several meetings. It probably cost us a month of time, I would say, before we got that resolved. Meeting with the architect and the builders and trying to figure out who was responsible for it. But we got through it, and what they ended up doing was putting a cabling system in that particular area of the building with turnbuckles up above that we could increase the tension and keep that from sagging. So that cost us a little bit of time. And it's never sagged since.
You're right there. It hadn't moved an inch.
And then the other thing was the dreaded floor, which we had a wood floor, wood dance floor going down. It was a parquet, beautiful floor, but oak parquet floor. But when you put it down on concrete, it's tricky, and you've got to be able to make sure that the moisture content is not above a certain level. And heading into spring and summer, the high humidity, we could not get that moisture content down low enough. And we even had the air conditioner cranked on really low to take humidity out. It eventually came down, but we just couldn't get that floor laid because it would have impacted the adhesive that goes down and also could have possibly damaged the wood floor itself. But we finally got it down. And as far as I know, it's not had any problems or has come up or buckled or anything.
And there were rumors floating around town that the roof was sagging before we got it built. I remember which was not the truth at all.
No.
Sure wasn't.
And to this date, it's the same. It's still the same shingles on that roof too.
Yeah, we're talking, what, 18 years later?
18 years later.
Talking now. We had planned to have a nice celebration, invite all the donors. We called them charter members. Lifetime. We have a plaque in the hallway listing everybody's name. There are individual plaques within the building. Some substantial gifts where they wanted a naming, such as a stage, a sound system, the kitchen, things of that nature. Each individual room, those plaques can still be seen. We had a little bit of a ribbon cutting ceremony. Some of the principals involved, and that's committee members plus major donors. Martin and Norman Rich, of course. Marge and Fillmore Mellick are financial boosters and boosters all the way. Dennis Batty, president of West Louis State Bank. Myself, Bob Klein, my wife and I were chairman of the fund drive, but with lots and lots of help. And that was the actual ribbon cutting ceremony, plus a very nice banquet, catered banquet. I'm going to show you just a partial picture of some of the crowd there. The only entertainment was different people that had input, gave some comments and speeches, the work time, and the end result, which everybody was pleased with.
I think the only thing, and for people down the road watching this, if you ever find a coffee cup from that night, don't pay attention to the date because the dates were already printed, and then we ran into the floor drying issue, and it put us off a little bit on that.
Here's a panoramic shot. I don't know if you can get there or not.
Oh, I think so.
I think your dad took that photo. We could seat 400 people using the round table design, which is a good-sized event. Since then, we've upped it to about 450. Got some extra tables, some extra chairs, like for weddings, things of that type, had need for it. A lot of those people were, like I mentioned, we had donations. Jim Park, do you remember Jim? Probably not. Lived down here by Nichols on a farm. He was in the senior citizen meal site. Come up to me one day and says, Bob, I don't have much, but here's $10.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, towards the, so quite a stretch from $10 to 400,000.
Yeah. But you know, it was one of those projects that everything was welcome.
Oh yes,
Everything
absolutely.
was welcome and appreciated.
And his name is on the plaque.
Yep.
For $10.
Yep, absolutely.
And out of that 240 some people that pledged money, all but 2, which is unheard of, were collected.
Is that right?
And one of them was because of a death in the family,
Sure.
in which we of course waived.
Right.
And then the person moved out of town and wasn't really financially able to meet the obligation otherwise.
I'll be.
And actually, we overfunded because we weren't aware of a Procter & Gamble grant that was in the pipeline for $35,000.
I do remember that now.
Remember the Hispanic gentleman walked in with a check just grinning from here to... It came a year after,
Yes.
and we weren't aware of it.
Unbelievable.
And we needed it because getting started, we didn't account for startups funds and that type of thing.
Right. Yeah. I believe as far as the building project, though, I think we stayed pretty much on budget. Wasn't that correct?
Less than 1% overrun.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Yep. We were able to
And
hold
the
line on
quality
that.
exceeded anything I had anticipated.
Couldn't be happier with the quality.
No,
I mean, they did an outstanding
No.
job, and other than normal wear and tear items, we haven't had, knock on wood, we haven't had issues with any of the buildings.
solid oak doors. And
Yep.
I just want to mention too, when we're talking about the finances, this is a copy of the dedication banquet, which was October 2 of 1999. We mentioned all the committees and people that helped and volunteered. There's a special section in there recognizing Marge and Fillmore Mellick, who are the owners and operators of the Westerly Telephone Company. They were the startup of our endowment. They donated $150,000, no strings attached, except interest only, interest towards the community center. It was
Right.
anticipated the child care center would easily pay for itself. Community center, we didn't know for sure, but wanting to hold the prices down so it'd be affordable to everyone,
Correct.
every social function you can think of. And that was a grand night. Did we drink a little champagne, Scott?
Yeah, a little bit.
I think so. We need to show the folks a finished product, which we're extremely proud of. That shows the two buildings. Grass hasn't been sowed yet. I think you probably remember helping sow the grass.
Yeah, I do.
Jay Steen bought his tractor and
Yeah,
seeder,
absolutely.
and it was dry and a little clay. I thought it would never grow, but
Oh, it
what
looks
a good
beautiful.
lawn.
Yeah.
Which reminds me too, we have kind of a separate endowment, and that being the landscaping project. All the trees up there have been donated, all the shrubs from survivors of maybe a spouse or family member that
Yeah,
passed.
that's correct.
And we have a notebook on file
Yeah,
with all the photos of each individual tree and who the donor was.
yeah.
A nice,
That's neat.
yeah, donated tree
Absolutely.
for last a long, long time.
Yep.
Well, we had quite a few social functions there, including weddings, birthdays, quinceañeras, am I pronouncing that right?
Yep.
Rotary Club meets there now.
Funerals even.
Lots more funerals than we anticipated because of the location.
Yeah.
Beautiful environment, no steps,
Absolutely.
good sound system.
Yeah.
Even has the overhead projector
Correct.
for photos. A kitchen, a catering kitchen. It just touched all the bases.
And I don't know. I mean, in the over the past 18 years, Bob, and the different board meetings, has there really been anything discussed as far as anything major you wish you would have done differently on the building? I know. Well, I guess we've added patio doors and an outside patio, and that was a good addition. But beyond that, has there ever been any discussion you wish we would have done this different or done that different?
I've served with 2 or 3 different managers. Ed Eichelberger was our first manager.
Oh, that's
He
right.
kind of jumped in right off. We didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
And then Patty Army and Larry Army, and all of them said you should have more storage room. Well, when you look at the storage rooms, they're just full of things that you really don't need.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if we'd had more storage room, we'd had more.
Yeah.
Junk.
There's no such thing as enough storage. It
No.
just never works that way.
Probably not. I'm just going to read the purpose out of the original book that we handed out to the public to establish our goals. I'm going to leave that up, Scott. 'Cause
Yeah.
That's a good shot. And if I can just read the purpose: to ensure the future vitality of West Liberty by developing a non-profit community center complex to promote community activities and meet community needs. That basically sums it up in a short sentence, takes care of it. There wasn't any tax money, with the exception for the first 2 years we got a partial of the 1% sales tax, local
Okay.
sales tax.
Okay.
And that went into the endowment also, which should
Okay.
be,
Yeah. So for the
What-
most part, it's all been privately funded,
yes.
basically.
And we basically had no debt after the second year.
Wow.
And we had figured in several $1,000s interest
Yeah.
in the budget, which we didn't need
Yep.
for that reason. So I thank you for your help.
Well, it was a great project. It was fun working with everybody on it, and it's one of those things you can look back and so many times in life you look back and think, what the heck did I accomplish? But this is something tangible that everybody can look back and say, I was a part of that. I was part of that, and that's going to live long beyond any of us. And that's a neat feeling.
Your dad said it well too, and he's of course 89 years old now.
Yeah.
Been here all his life.
Yeah.
The greatest non-profit public project that he's witnessed and been part of.
Yeah.
Not counting school projects, of course, and churches are a little bit different.
Right.
But to see the people come together.
And I think we were the first in this particular area really to take something on like this. And I kind of think it might have inspired some surrounding communities to try and do a project like this. But I don't think that they were ever to put it together with all private donations. I think there were municipal funds involved in some of those other
Well,
projects.
It's true.
And we can say we did it here.
And West Branch is still struggling with the child care, aren't they? They can't get.
Yeah, I mean they've got something, but they don't have a true community center.
Yeah.
They've been trying to get something like that going, but
Yeah.
they have not been able to get it to come
Get
together.
over the hump.
Right.
And I agree too, times are different. I would second guess myself now attempting to tackle this because of the economy.
Well, and you also said it. There's a generational change too,
Yep.
and there's just different philosophies and so many other different things out there pulling people in different directions and commanding their finances. So timing was perfect, really, on this project.
Financial wise, we should also mention the Ed and the Joe Ryan Trust. Joe Ryan was alive when we were doing the fund drive. He personally wrote out a substantial check.
Yeah.
Plus, they established a nonprofit foundation in West Liberty. Gets into the millions without
Right.
divulging any secrets because he has a farm involved. For the benefit of the West Liberty community, the community center several times has relied on the Ryan Trust to make a donation to help them with some projects. And you mentioned the outside patio was primarily a Ryan Trust donation.
Yeah, the Ryan Trust has been a great friend to the community center and to all organizations in the area. I mean, there's no question about it. But when you really stop, think of the time frame that we did this project. And the thing that really is astounding, it wasn't the only project that was going on.
That's right.
There was the depot project with the Heritage Foundation and the public library expansion.
Which had a budget of $1 million.
Yeah, I mean, there was millions of dollars being donated
Yeah.
to 3 significant projects at the same time, and they all came together.
You're absolutely right. Good point, Scott. And I'm proud to be part of it.
Absolutely. And the community needs to be proud of it, too.
Yeah.
'Cause that can't be said for too many communities
Yeah.
that can pull that off.
No, for sure. And successfully meet its goals.
Yep.
And the community center now is in very good financial shape. Like you mentioned, no debt after the second year,
Right.
and tried to do a good job. If I was on the board for 15 years, you served on the board.
For a certain period of time. I
Yeah.
think when I went to law school, then I had to get off.
Yeah.
And do
And
that.
trying to do the appropriate upgrades as it goes along. And
Yep.
I don't know how many people come in out of town to a wedding or a funeral. Wow,
Yeah.
this is a nice building.
Yeah.
Is this city owned? This is publicly owned, a nonprofit Iowa corporation.
Right.
Well, thank you for your help.
Thank you for your help.
Okay, I guess we've.
Well, we'll sign off then.
Okay, thank
All
you,
right.
West Liberty.
Thank you, West Liberty is right.